Welcome back, my power plants, to this week's countdown. This week's countdown is going to be my top 5 Final Fantasy games. Now, there is going to be one rule. No side games. So, sorry Final Fantasy Tactics and Crystal Guardians, but this list was hard enough without adding you guys into the mix. So, without further ado, let's head on to number 5. Number 5 on this list is going to be the original Final Fantasy. And this one earns its place on the list just for what it is. The original, the one without which none of the others would exist. I feel it deserves to be remembered for just that reason alone. Even if it wasn't a good game, which I enjoy the classics from time to time, and I think it's an alright representation of a JRPG. And with that, there's nothing really else to say, so let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is Final Fantasy 13. And yes, put down your pitchforks, I said that right, Final Fantasy 13. And can everyone say guilty pleasure? Yes, I know Final Fantasy 13 isn't the most popular of the Final Fantasies, but I like it. I know I probably shouldn't, but something about it is just, it works for me. Of course, I'm also the same person who says I'm a simple person. If it's Final Fantasy, I like, so my opinion on this matter may not account for much. I like the characters, I like the gameplay. It's something simple to relax to, I find. But with that, let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is Final Fantasy IV. Specifically the DS port. And this game has an interesting history with me, because originally my dad got it for my younger brother, and he wanted me to test it out to make sure it worked, because he got it off of eBay. And so I played the whole thing through, and I adored it, so I went out and got a copy for myself, and played it a second time within the same 3-week period. That's how much I really liked Final Fantasy IV. The class change systems. Wait, no, that's the wrong Final Fantasy. The Kain and Cecil and the Spoony Bard. I just loved all of them. And let's move on to number 2. This is where the list got really hard for me. But for number 2, I'm putting Final Fantasy VII. I've already told you how Sephiroth made it to my top 5 final bosses. And just the game in general. It was one of my first 3D JRPGs. And I love the story. I love Cloud. I love Aerith. I love Tifa and Barret. And the hardest part of that game was choosing who to use in my party. And I loved how there were secret characters. And when I ran face first into Yuffie, I was like, who's this? And then when you were able to recruit her, I was like, oh my gosh, I got a ninja on my team. Even though ninja is a class that you can play in previous Final Fantasies, it's like, but something was special about Yuffie. But anyway, I'm rambling, and Final Fantasy was just one of my earlier games that I played that I really enjoyed, and that's what got its place on this list. And it also helps that it's just a classic overall. Now, let's move on to number 1. Number 1 could have been a lot of things, because, like I said, I enjoy most of the Final Fantasies. But if I'm being absolutely brutally honest with myself, no Final Fantasy quite tops Final Fantasy VI. And a large part of that is going to be due to Kefka. Now, he didn't make it into my top final bosses, but he was definitely a contender. Sephiroth only beat him out because I played Final Fantasy VII before 6 and had more memories of struggling against Sephiroth. But Kefka is definitely a great villain who wins, and Final Fantasy VI was just a greatly put together game. I remember hunting down all the summons, and without a guide, mind you. And it's just a game that I've come back to again and again that I really liked. And that's it. Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 7, and Final Fantasy 6. Feel free to tell me your favorite Final Fantasy. Let's try saying that 5 times fast in the comments below. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe, ring the little dingly bell. And until next time, if you would be so kind, get off my lawn, you filthy casuals.